Hello, everyone. Welcome back to my YouTube channel. I have to say, this storyline grabbed my attention immediately because it reminds me of something I've seen many times in life. Sometimes a family doesn't fall apart because of one huge event. Instead, it happens little by little, one misunderstanding at a time, until suddenly everyone is standing on opposite sides wondering how they got there. That's exactly the feeling I get when I watch what's happening between Lulu and Charlotte right now. The way I see it, Charlotte's anger toward Lulu has reached a point where it can no longer be ignored. For a long time, she has been carrying the emotional weight of her father's complicated life, but Valentin's departure seems to have pushed her beyond her limit. What makes this situation so sad is that Charlotte already lost precious time with her mother while Lulu was in a coma. When Lulu finally came back, it should have been the beginning of a new chapter for their family. Instead, the reunion that everyone hoped would heal old wounds has created a completely different set of problems. From Charlotte's perspective, Valentin is still her father no matter what mistakes he has made. That's something many adults forget when they judge these situations. Children often see people differently than the rest of the world does. They don't always focus on crimes, scandals, or bad decisions. They remember who comforted them when they were scared and who made them feel loved when nobody else could. Every time Lulu criticizes Valentin, Charlotte hears criticism directed at someone she deeply loves. Over time, those comments have created a wall between mother and daughter that seems to be growing taller every day. What really broke my heart was Valentin's goodbye to Charlotte. The man knew exactly what he was risking when he surrendered himself to the WSB. He understood there was a very real possibility that he could end up back in Steinmauer and never return home. Even though he believed stopping Ross Cullum and Jen Sidwell was the right thing to do, that doesn't change the emotional impact his decision had on Charlotte. Imagine being a young girl and hearing your father admit that you may never see each other again. That's the kind of moment that stays with someone forever. I think Charlotte is carrying far more pain than anyone realizes. She is angry at Valentin for leaving, angry at the situation that forced him away, and increasingly angry at Lulu because she believes her mother never truly understood how much Valentin means to her. When people experience that much emotional turmoil at once, they often begin searching for someone who will simply listen without judgment. That's where Carly enters the picture. One thing I've always found interesting about Carly is that people tend to turn to her during their most difficult moments. She may not always have the perfect answers, but she has a way of making people feel protected. Charlotte has spent more and more time at Carly's house, and honestly, I can understand why. Right now, Carly's home probably feels calmer and safer than the tension-filled environment Charlotte experiences with Lulu. Sometimes all it takes is one person making you feel understood, and suddenly you start seeing that place as your second home. The possibility that Charlotte could choose to stay with Carly doesn't seem far-fetched to me at all. In fact, it feels like the natural direction this story could be heading. Charlotte has developed a strong bond with Carly, and she may even believe that staying there keeps her connected to Valentin in some way. Deep down, I suspect she is still holding on to hope that her father will come back. Young people are often far more hopeful than adults, and that hope can influence every decision they make. What makes Lulu's situation even worse is that Charlotte isn't the only child growing frustrated. Rocco appears to be reaching his breaking point as well. After everything he has gone through, including his time away with Britt, he seems exhausted by the constant conflict surrounding his family. The fact that both of Lulu's children are becoming unhappy at the same time should be a major warning sign. Unfortunately, Lulu appears so focused on Valentin's past that she may not realize how much damage is being done in the present. That's the part of this story that fascinates me the most. Lulu genuinely believes she is protecting her children. In her mind, she is trying to keep them away from dangerous influences and help them make better choices. The problem is that Charlotte and Rocco don't see it that way. They feel like they're being asked to reject people they care about. The larger this emotional gap becomes, the harder it will be for Lulu to repair those relationships. Right now, Lulu seems completely unaware of how serious the situation is. She still believes she can eventually make Charlotte understand her point of view. But life doesn't always work that way. Sometimes people stop listening long before anyone notices. If Charlotte truly decides that Carly is the person who understands her best, Lulu may find herself facing the most painful realization any parent can experience: losing her daughter's trust at the very moment she thought she was protecting her. When I sit back and think about how this whole situation is unfolding, I can't help but feel that Charlotte has already made up her mind deep down. She wants to live with Carly, And in a way that feels both emotional and surprising, Carly doesn't hesitate for even a second to accept her. There's something very natural about that decision from Carly's side. She has always had a soft spot for Charlotte, but more than that, I think she sees something familiar in the girl. Charlotte carries herself with a kind of emotional intensity that reminds Carly of Valentin, and whether she wants to admit it or not, that connection pulls at her heart. It's like she is holding on to a piece of someone she misses deeply, and Charlotte unknowingly becomes a reminder of that absence. What makes this even more powerful is the timing. Valentin is still missing, and the silence surrounding his situation is getting heavier with each passing day. Nobody has real answers. Nobody knows where he is or what condition he might be in. It feels like the entire story has been frozen in place, and that uncertainty is eating away at everyone involved. I've seen enough in Port Charles to know that silence usually means something is being hidden, and right now, it feels like the truth is being kept just out of reach. The comparison to Jason Morgan's situation isn't something I say lightly either. Jason's absence has already left a major gap, and now with Valentin also missing, it almost feels like the world of these characters is waiting for two major pieces to fall back into place before anything can truly move forward again. Even though Ross Cullum and Jen Sidwell are no longer actively causing chaos, that doesn't bring comfort. Because the bigger issue now is not who has been dealt with, but who is still being kept in the shadows. Z's silence regarding Jason is troubling enough, but the fact that there has been absolutely no meaningful update about Valentin makes everything feel even more unstable. It's like everyone is being forced to live in a state of emotional limbo, and in that kind of environment, people start making decisions based on fear, hope, and instinct rather than logic. That emotional instability is exactly what makes Charlotte's choice to move in with Carly so believable to me. She is not just looking for a place to stay, she is looking for something solid to hold on to. Lulu's home at this moment feels like a place filled with tension, unresolved grief, and constant arguments about Valentin's past. For Charlotte, that environment doesn't offer comfort anymore. It feels like pressure from every direction, and when a young person feels cornered like that, they naturally start searching for a place where they can breathe again. Carly's house, on the other hand, represents something very different in Charlotte's eyes. It is not perfect, not by a long shot, but it feels calmer, more accepting, and less judgmental. And Carly, despite all her flaws and emotional history, has always had a strong instinct when it comes to protecting the people she cares about. So when Charlotte expresses the desire to stay, Carly doesn't see it as a problem to solve or a situation to question. She sees it as a chance to give a young girl some stability in the middle of emotional chaos, and she agrees without hesitation. In fact, I would go as far as saying she almost welcomes it, because Charlotte's presence fills a quiet emotional space in her life that has been left open for a long time. Still, I don't think any of this erases the bigger uncertainty hanging over everything. Because no matter what is happening in the households of Carly, Lulu, or anyone else, the truth is that two major figures are still missing. Valentin and Jason are not just absent characters in a storyline, they are emotional anchors for many of the people left behind. Their disappearance creates a gap that no new arrangement or temporary comfort can fully replace. Everyone is coping in their own way, but deep down, they are all waiting for answers that haven't come yet. So yes, Charlotte may be moving into Carly's home, and yes, Carly may be opening her doors without hesitation, but in my eyes, this is not the end of anything. It feels more like a waiting period. A moment where everyone is trying to hold things together while silently hoping that the people they have lost will eventually find their way back home. And if that day comes, I have no doubt it will change everything once again.